mother, and she's unapologetic about being single and child-free. But would things have been different if she'd had a wife? Well, Sarah Wilson is here with us. Great to talk to you, Sarah. Explain that to us. You recently wrote about this in your blog, that you were sitting next to a guy on a plane who made a comment to you. What did he say and what was your reaction?
Oh, he was watching me working. I was working the whole way because I've got a book that's coming out, so I was on deadline, and he was feeling guilty. He's a banker from New York. And I said, you know, what do you do? And I explained, and he said, oh, you know, do you have children? I said, no. He said, oh, well, no wonder, you know, you wouldn't be able to fit them in amongst everything that you're doing. And he went to sleep, and I decided to write a blog post about it while he was asleep, picking up on the idea that I cannot imagine someone like himself saying, look, I wasn't able to have children just because I was so busy during those formative years in my career. And I was thinking, it just doesn't happen. That so many women, like myself, do find ourselves in that position where, you know, we were very passionate about what we did. We got really engaged, you know, it meant we travelled a lot. We probably had the blinkers on for that sort of critical period between your late 20s and the early 30s, where it's all about kind of settling down. And my male peers, who I guess were at the same level of career, partnered with younger women who had careers that probably weren't as formed and were more in a position, or more happy, I suppose, happier, to support them.
So really, I mean, if you're in a high-flying career, you know, a very busy, very successful person, or even if it's just a very busy person, you're really relying upon your other partner, which you refer to as a wife in your article.
Yeah, and I use wife to mean that sort of other partner, the partner who's supportive. Yeah, and I don't diminish the role of a wife in any shape or form. And, you know, I'm the first person to suggest that I think that kind of role should be paid, and paid probably twice as much as any banker. And it's also not to acknowledge that so many women are both career women as well as wives, you know, supporting their husbands and families. But, yeah, I just think that we've got to a stage, I mean, up until probably 30, 40 years ago, every kind of successful career-orientated person did have somebody at home picking up the dry cleaning, feeding the dog, picking up the kids from school, organising the holidays, even just small things like throwing the veggies out when they go old in the fridge, you know, just
which is why I've never understood, you know, the old-fashioned concept, which is very much alive today, of the husband getting his pay in an account and then dishing out housekeeping money. I mean, that money has been earned by husband and wife in doing all of the duties required to run a family. It should be
I don't know that happens too often these days.
I still see it. Yes, I see it all the time. And women having to hide their purchases from a man, or saving up some housekeeping if they want to buy something special for the house or for themselves. Or
I think, I mean, there's so many aspects to this notion of the male-female sort of dynamic these days. So many shifts have occurred, but very little has changed in the home. So much occurs in the career realm, but you go home and yes, some of these very traditional dynamics, I suppose, are still in place. And you know, as I said in my blog, I'm not actually whinging about this. I'm not actually, you know, down on it or negative in any way, because I just accept that that is where we're at. And it's a biological imperative that men tend to care in the relationship in a particular way, and women care in a relationship in a particular way. And a lot of the role...
I disagree.
I'm making generalisations, but the role that men generally had, which was as the provider, I don't know, standing outside the cave and making sure a wildebeest didn't come and eat the family, that role has been, I guess, diminished over the years, because, you know, everything's safe. We don't need men to go out and fight in wars, you know, and defend us in that kind of way. And so, whereas the female role really hasn't changed, i.e. nurturing and bringing up children. And that's the difficulty.
I wonder whether the difficulty is, and whether it is genetic, or whether we are just, you know, this has happened over time, but women tend to be good at multitasking, and so that is why they tend to run the house, you know, be able to do those things. But not in all cases, you know, and I think that we've definitely changed. I don't think men anymore think that it's not their job to change nappies, to do the shopping, you know, those sorts of things.
They're just not as good at it, and I agree with you. And it's sort of, it might sound a bit unfair. They're not as good at it because they don't do it.
That's right, that's right. You've got to...
It's chicken and egg.
Yeah, it's chicken and egg. I absolutely agree.
And the research very clearly shows that our attitudes towards how labour should be divided within the house, and indeed within the family structure, picture
Yeah.
has changed much quicker than the reality on the ground.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we all
want it to
think
move
they should be
faster.
shared, but it's not being
And
shared.
all those studies will show when they sort of ask men and women to add up how much housework they do, men, it's off the Richter scale. They don't actually realise they're not doing all that much.
Yeah.
And it's a perception thing, you're right. It's just what's happening on the ground hasn't shifted at the same rate as what we're wanting it to shift at. But it's a really interesting, isn't it amazing how when you bring up this topic of male-female relationships in the home, it just sparks so much stuff.
It does.
And it's generally quite compassionate because we do understand. We're not as angry as we were, you know, I guess a generation ago. We're now trying to actually work through it. And my point is that, and I don't think it's actually talked about a hell of a lot, that there's a lot of women my age, I'm about to turn 40, who have not partnered up, and there's a reason for it, and it's not all that bad. There's a reason for it. We've got a great career. We moved around. We had lots of exciting things happening. And I don't think that's actually voiced enough.
Yes,
and on the blog, so many women say, I'm glad you put it this way. It actually throws a different light on being single. And, you know, I realise in many ways it was my choice.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sarah, it's great that you came in, talked about it, as you say.
Check out the blog, everyone. Check out the blog.
SarahWilson.com.
SarahWilson.com, there you go.